You know, today we're trying something just a little bit different with this explainer. We aren't looking at breaking news, and we certainly aren't here to make any sensational predictions. Instead, we're stepping back. We're going to engage in a quiet observation of structural change, exploring a civilization phase shift that may actually already be underway.
Just look at the world around us. On the surface, things appear completely normal, right? Logistics still move our packages from point A to B. Electricity flows the exact moment we flip a switch. Global networks operate seamlessly. The physical facade of our daily civilization seems totally intact.
And yet, many of us carry this lingering unease, don't we? It's like we're living inside a system that hasn't collapsed, but somehow it just no longer feels resilient. It's a subtle but really vital observation. Structural instability is often something you can feel in the background of your life, long before it's ever seen in some dramatic way.
Because collapse rarely begins as a sudden cinematic event. Instead, it seems to start with invisible changes. We're talking small delays in supply chains, minor shortages of basic everyday components, just a little extra friction in daily operations. Civilizations don't just vanish overnight. They simply become harder to recover, slowly worn down by quiet, everyday friction.
Structural change actually tends to move through a very specific mechanical sequence. First, there's an accumulation of pressure, which creates a gradient that leads to deep structural stress, and finally, a phase shift. The true danger here isn't a sudden, frightening event. The real issue appears to be this quietly accumulated pressure.
So where is this pressure coming from? Let's look at the epicenter, AI intersecting with state infrastructure. You see, AI is no longer merely consumer software or some free market toy. Think about its overlapping capabilities now. Information gathering, judgment, resource prediction, order, and distribution. These capabilities directly mirror the core functions of state governance. AI is beginning to look remarkably like the capacity to govern.
But here's the catch. AI doesn't just magically float out there in the cloud. As computation expands, its profound physical dependency expands right along with it. To function, it requires massive electricity grids, millions of gallons of water just for server cooling, wildly complex global logistics, and highly specific semiconductors. As intelligence scales up, its heavy reliance on physical civilization deepens. And with that dependency comes a quiet structural loss. When we look at our systems today, the key question isn't really whether they are still running. What's actually disappearing is our buffer, our redundancy, and our recovery capacity. Over the past few decades, strict optimization made our systems lighter and faster, but it appears it has also made them much more fragile.
This brings us to a structural gradient that's shifting right before our eyes. AI began its life as a free market tool, right? It was this open landscape of private innovation and borderless deployment. But that trajectory is shifting. Because of its massive physical footprint and those overlapping governance capabilities we mentioned, AI seems to be moving toward becoming state-embedded infrastructure. It's becoming increasingly reliant on state subsidies, regulation, and sovereign integration.
Which naturally leads us to think about the next civilization.
The information civilization we've known for decades was driven by speed, telecommunications, finance, and the open internet. But the emerging AI governance era appears to be driven by completely different resources: compute, energy, data, and resilience. In this new phase, distributed structural buffers may actually replace speed as our absolute core civilizational resource.
And because of this deep integration with the state, intelligence itself may be fracturing. We're observing the potential rise of sovereign AI, block-based AI, and national security AI. As artificial intelligence merges with distinct national values and security needs, it appears to be diverging. It's fragmenting into walled gardens rather than remaining a single, globally open network.
But remember, civilizations rarely collapse instantly. They erode quietly, and then they shift phase. We don't necessarily need to be bracing for a dramatic ending. We may actually already be navigating the quiet space of this silent transition right now, just feeling the friction of the shift.
So, will the AI civilization remain an open network, or will it become heavily state-managed infrastructure? I'll leave you to let that question just linger in your cognitive space. We don't have definitive answers yet, but by quietly observing the gradients and the pressures, the structure has become slightly visible. Thank you for taking the time to explore this explainer with me today.